When we come together, great things happen. That's a saying you often hear when large projects are underway to being executed. However, the statement holds nothing but the truth. Take Africa as a continent, for example. There are 54 different independent countries, all separated by borderlines that each of the countries religiously cherishes. Despite these countries being confined in the imaginary lines that humans have made, some African countries have chosen to overlook these and come together to develop each other's economies. They have come together, complementing each other to become better, in the process uniting Africa. This uniting makes the continent richer, stronger, and a step closer to being a superpower. A lot more is being done by different countries on the continent, which places Africa on the road to becoming a superpower. Today's video aims to look into all that is being done by different African countries to create a superpower continent. Before we go on, just a tiny reminder, if you haven't done so already, a sub to the channel would be highly appreciated. Don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so that you won't miss future video post notifications. Without wasting time, let's get started. When you hear or read the phrase superpower, the first thing that comes to mind are nations like United States of America, China, Europe as a continent, and other of similar caliber. What about the continent of Africa? When people hear the term Africa, they frequently think of vast wide spaces, the world's most magnificent and sadly hunted wildlife, people with rich cultures, and lastly, poverty that people in the region undergo. Vital NGOs work in nations like the Central African Republic, providing basics much needed like sanitation and water. Others in countries like the Ivory Coast are thriving at a pace that only China has seen before, piquing the curiosity of the rest of the globe, including China. If you pay attention to the news, you may have observed that many Western nations are investing in Africa. So why are so many substantial Russian, Chinese, and American corporations putting money into Africa in the name of investing? The answer is straightforward: potential. Africa as a continent is mainly undiscovered. Not only in the sense that you can't name more than special features found there, but also in the sense that everything found is taken for granted. Trains, housing, catering, electricity, literally everything else you can think of. Or in the words of a Chinese entrepreneur, your company concept is a seed and their land is the soil. Africa is the world's fastest growing continent, with over 16% of the world's population currently residing there, and that means business for other nations. To appreciate Africa's potential to become a superpower, you must first comprehend how China rose from the dust and soared. This is because Africa is following the steps that China took to rise to the heights that it is at now. They experienced a 40-year economic restructuring period. It all began in 1978 when China became a fully liberalized market economy. This enticed foreign corporations to come and open businesses. It paved the way for Chinese landowners to throw down their troughs, sell their property, and go to the city searching for jobs. This project developed China into the industrial giant that it is today. The Chinese farmers earned 100 times more money than they had ever made before. The international firms were paying 100 times less than they would have had to pay any American labor, so they decided to remain in China. China's GDP increased from an average of 150 billion to 12 trillion in 2017, making it one of the world's largest economic superpowers. China's workforce is becoming more powerful, hence cheap labor is running out. As the population becomes richer and China catches up to the rest of the globe, a new era of labor and growth opportunities emerges. This is where Africa enters the picture. This time though, it will be the Chinese who invest. Healthcare, mining, and finance seem to be the most important investments at the moment. Africa has large diamonds, sugar, salt, gold, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, bauxite, silver, petroleum deposits, and cocoa bean plantations. With a land area of 11.69 million square miles, it's safe to say there are many resources to discover as of yet. Africa is the only continent that can self-sustain using all of the resources available in the area, something China didn't have and definitely a starting point for various sectors. seeing the potential and produce that comes from Africa, President Xi Jinping claims that inadequate infrastructure is believed to be the strongest bottleneck to Africa's development. He is entirely correct. Without enough roads, commodities cannot be transported, goods cannot be sold, and the economy cannot expand. There's just one way to fix this problem: create a lot of infrastructures. As a result, China is doing just that. Beijing has proposed a 1 billion Belt and Road Africa Fund and a 60 billion financial support package, which includes grants, loans, financial incentives, and infrastructure investment. All of this will surely propel their already steady development into something more respectable, allowing them to expand their role as a trade partner with not just China but the rest of the globe. A question emerges after seeing how Africa is presently getting many investments from other nations, all of which attempt to improve the economic standards of African countries. In a few years, where will Africa be? Mostly in the famed year 2030. Almost certainly, the continent will have attained the status of a superpower continent. Strategic Forecasting, or Stratfor, a private intelligence agency, just released its much-anticipated decade forecast, which forecasts worldwide political and economic changes for the next 10 years. According to results statistics, Africa might be on track to be a superpower. It suggests: Number 1. Africa will have greener desert and herding animals will be cool again. Although severe climatic events are frequently connected with climate change, hot locations increasing hotter and rainy places getting wetter, it also has the reverse effect. Because rising temperatures allow the air to pull up and contain more water vapor, some hot, dry locations are suddenly experiencing wetter weather. Northern Sudan, southern Egypt, the Western Sahara region, and sections of the Sahel belt are the areas where it is most noticeable. Satellite data suggests that these areas have become greener over the last decade, with pastoralists reporting grass, bushes, and even trees blooming in formerly barren desert places. Although scientific consensus on how the trend will play out in the long run is lacking, it may point to a reduction in land and pasture disputes, providing relief to places like Darfur and the Chad Basin that have been ravaged by conflict. Given that Africa already has some of the world's most depleted soils, it may only be a matter of time until the often marginalized pastoralist becomes the face of the continent's agricultural industry. It also bodes well for Somalia, which relies on livestock exports for money. The nation is currently the world's largest exporter of goats and sheep. Herding will be cool and a juicy venture soon in Africa. Number 2. Africa's youth, badly needed. Because of the aging populations in Europe, America, China, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan, Sub-Saharan Africa will uniquely meet labor demand. Africa will be able to provide youngsters for labor. We will likely see more emigration northward, not only for regular industrial or service jobs, but also for African young people joining Western militaries in exchange for citizenship. Number 3. China's successors. China is already nearing the end of its high-growth, low-wage period. Its comparative export advantage of low wages and a vast workforce is also eroding. Other nations now have lower labor costs than China and are prepared to adopt China's economic model. Stratfor identifies 16 countries, dubbed the post-China 16, as being best positioned to take over as global manufacturing hubs, particularly in garment and footwear manufacturing and mobile phone assembly. Highly competitive areas with low wages but rapid growth, according to the analysts. Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania were among them, with a combined population of almost 220 million people, 2/3 of whom are under 30. Ethiopia's export-oriented state-led economy has done precisely that, attracting foreign direct investment in garment and leather production at a rapid pace. Ethiopia's economy has grown at twice the rate of the African area during the last decade, averaging 10.6% GDP growth per year between 2004 and 2011. Number 4. Routine repetitive jobs out. As industrial technology advances, blue-collar manufacturing positions and the whole cadre of clerical occupations will evaporate during the next 10 years. According to a recent groundbreaking study on the future of employment by Oxford University scholars, machine operators, construction workers, telemarketers, cashiers, credit analysts, loan officers, and other clerical jobs will be eliminated from the workplace. particularly tasks following well-defined procedures that can easily be performed by sophisticated algorithms such as machine operators, construction workers, telemarketers, cashiers, credit analysts, loan officers, and other clerical jobs will lead to many persons losing jobs. These individuals will be absorbed in other more fruitful ventures. This doubts several African countries' strategies for achieving middle-class statuses, such as recruiting business process outsourcing (BPO). BPO is an essential method for employment generation in Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. However, BPO employment such as telemarketing, data entry, and even basic accounting positions are all declining. As we near the end, we can all confirm that Africa has long been harmed by globalization and the faltering global economic and political order. Even without a complete monetary union, African nations are reaping the advantages of cooperation. There is a growing realization that services may be traded virtually, and scale efficiencies in the service industry are simple to attain in these regions. What makes you think Lagos or Nairobi can't provide telecommunications and information services? Kenya's M-Pesa mobile service is already a great example of what Africa has to offer in terms of mobile banking to the rest of the globe. Africa is on the rise, for better or worse. Whether you agree with it or not, with fundamental necessities like healthcare, water, sanitation, and basic infrastructure like roads in place, any economy can thrive with the correct leadership. And the unknown continent should be no exception. Having reached that point marks the end of today's video. Do you believe that Africa will once be a superpower like China, since it is following the same steps that China followed to its current state of being a superpower? Let's engage and keep the conversation going in the comments section. Also, if you enjoyed the video, a thumbs up and a sub to the channel will be highly appreciated. Also, explore the channel for even more content that sheds light on Africa as a continent and what it offers to the world. Until the next video, stay safe.